on December 20th, just 2 days ago, as the first phase of work at the plant has been completed.
This is, in my view, a very good story because it looks like the FG listens to Freshly Pressed when I say I want to hear of things that have happened or are happening, not intended to happen. So kudos, there was a promise given. The FG said we will start operations this December. At that point, skeptics like me said, no, in December. And skeptics like me said, which December? They meant December 2023. I actually saw a video where they appear to have started a process with the flare going up and all that. So this first part is in line. It's a very important milestone that was promised. It has been met. Kudos to Nigeria. Kudos to the FG. Billions have been spent over years, decades indeed, to get this working. It's one of 4 we have in the country. I'm intrigued and very interested in knowing next step. They say they have started, a phase, a mechanical phase. So roughly how long is this phase supposed to last? They say right after Christmas, they'll start production. I'm very curious about how it may or may not affect the overall price of fuel because there is available fuel. At least we're not getting queues in the classic end of year sense. There is fuel, but it has been quite expensive. It remains quite expensive. I'd like to know, is there going to be a 5% drop? Is there going to be a 50% drop? It will be something for us to look forward to. Whatever product is coming from there, it should not be imagined as going to replace all the fuel that's needed in Nigeria. But what portion of it will no longer need to be imported is something that I would love for them to announce. And then maybe from there, people can project just what effect it will have on prices. But kudos to Nigeria, kudos to the president, kudos to the NNPC, which personally I had long felt did not need to exist as it currently was, because it just seemed that billions were going to the NNPC for zero value. So in this case, they've done the job, and I'm hoping it will be a sustained job. Not that it'll come on stream now, and in 6 months from now, we'll hear more stories. Kudos. Good news for Nigeria.
Thank you, AB.
Just AB, before we rest the story, we'd like you to also still staying with the Port Harcourt refinery, and because you talk about availability, production, amounts to be imported to augment what's needed locally. Link that also to the Dangote refinery, and let's see how the coming on board of these two would solve the problem.
Yes, we heard that the Dangote refinery has got some millions of barrels of oil delivered recently within the last week. So between this one, you see, I don't know whether, in fact, I know the oil industry is run and operated by mechanical engineers who are extremely precise. And so it troubles me that there is what looks like to me like a deliberate vagueness about matters to do with this refining capacity. If you say you've got 1 million barrels at Dangote refinery, what does that convert to? By which date, even if it's in a certain number of weeks, are we expecting that to be converted to fuel? How many million or thousands of barrels of petrol will that be? Give us some precision. Engineers are noted for precision. That is one of the reasons why I admire them so much. They are remarkably precise. So when you hear all these stories about refining and barrels, and you don't hear much else, it still gives me cause for pause. But that said, it's a good news story, potentially in terms of fuel supply and availability around Nigeria. Let's keep our fingers crossed, and kudos, because a promise made was a promise kept.
Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning.
Joseph,
Yes,
I understand that this apparently is a terrain where you're very conversant, and you may have to drop a grain of salt on this one before we get to the paper. You would need to help us unveil.
Yeah, I mean, the truth, simply as Zibby has said, is that sometimes there are vagueness about the capacity to produce and deliver the refined product. And the reasons why sometimes there is vagueness is that the nameplate of a refinery doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it produces. I mean, like the old refinery is about 60,000 barrels capacity, which is quite small. So we can't raise people's hopes that this is going to really take a chink at what's going on in the industry now. And unfortunately, Dangote also hasn't been really as transparent in its own in communication as for what it is doing, and given the kind of fanfare that that surrounded its commissioning, even before I was even ready to commission, because there is ceremonial commissioning, and that's what the mechanical engineers calls commissioning of a plant, which goes through a number of phases, which normally is what you do before you do the ceremony. So that once you have done the ceremony, you are actually producing. But in this case, the cart was placed before the horse. They did the ceremonial commissioning because the government wanted to take a name for it. And then they started the real commissioning of the plant, which has taken months now. So now, and then there was the issue of availability of crude to give to the refinery, because we are not even producing enough crude to sell, to make money for the country, not to talk about allocating to all the refineries that are on board. And these are the issues. These are the serious challenges we are facing. There are even marginal refineries who are not even getting enough. We are not even getting allocation of crude oil. So until we ramp up our production, crude oil production to the level where we have enough to sell and have enough to give to the refineries, we may even have refineries that cannot produce.
All right, let's go on to the messages. JP says, compliments of the season. The mechanical stage achieved is a plus. Now we need to know, as you said, the efficiency levels, crude feed, and durability. Cost-wise, I would say 20% lower. Then again, the refinery efficiency is key, but information is a must. Thank you, JP. We've actually had JP as a guest on Lagos Talks talking about the oil situation and petrol situation in Nigeria. And hopefully, JP, it will be nice to have you on again in the new year.
Let's, Joseph, we go to the Guardian newspaper, where President Tinubu is determined to repatriate stolen wealth back to the country, even as we know he's back in Lagos for the Christmas. But help us make sense of the story.
Well, you know, when I read this piece, it's interesting to say, yeah, we are going to get our money back as wherever it is. But the aspect that interested me is the commitment to fighting corruption. And that's where I actually want to concentrate. The minister says the government, and particularly this administration, the president, is determined to fight corruption in Nigeria. And honestly, in Nigeria, I think we've never really got to understand what corruption means, because there are several things that have happened in this administration that shows that we are not seriously and honest to fight corruption. Corruption does not necessarily mean you stealing money only. When you influence the system to benefit people and twist the system in such a way that you bend the rules to favor people, that's corruption. So we want to see holistic fight of corruption. It's not just one aspect. Oh, I arrest somebody who stole money, and then the trial goes on for ages and we don't hear anything, and the person goes away, and that's the end of it. We've had the media trials of governors who were arrested by EFCC. What came out of the show? You know, so we need to go beyond all of this, and just a matter of showmanship. Let me put it that way: the drama that goes around prosecuting corruption to actually addressing systemic corruption. That's what I would think the government should focus on. It's not a matter, oh, we're bringing back money, so we are fighting corruption. That's not all the battle about corruption. And we should be sincere with ourselves that the corruption in Nigeria is systemic and it's endemic. And if the government does not demonstrate our understanding, then we have not started.
A final question as we rest that headline. One would ask, much as you want to repatriate stolen funds still out there, what have we done and how well have we managed to once recovered so far?
That is the question, because everybody, even the Abata loot that came in several times, they say, oh, we are using it for this and use it for that. But we really haven't seen that. I mean, of course, there have been allegations, that even heads of EFCC have been involved in cornering some of the money that come in. So a whole lot of darkness surrounds the management of recovered funds, property seized from corrupt officials of government, and so on. Allegations that have never been investigated and made public what the outcomes were. So there's a whole lot of gray area around the fight for corruption in many, many aspects of our country life.
If I may
Right.
just add,
Yes.
if I may just add, you see, corruption, there is the one you can recognize when somebody corners something illegally. And then by the definition of the word, like Joseph said, corruption is perverting anything. It can amount to a corruption of good morals and sense for a person to finish a 4 or 8 year term and then begin to earn money as if they're almost a sitting governor. That is a corruption, is a perversion of what should be. So corruption, there's the official one where you're caught 2 bags of Ghana must go. And there's the officially sanctioned corruption where it makes no sense that people are hungry and struggling and some people are getting bulletproof SUVs. That's a corruption. It's a perversion. It's perverse. And that too has to have consequences.
All right, let's go on to the next headline from Vanguard. We're yet to recover from transport fare cut announced by previous governments. The Nigerian Railway Corporation says they are still trying to recover from the transportation fare that was introduced. And they're stating this in response to the federal government's plan of 100% slash for rail transport. Now, the NRC boss is saying that the cost of the intervention scheme might be a lot and hopes that the government can actually defray the cost of it.
Now, this sounds to me almost like an administrative oversight or lapse or deliberate neglect, because for a government to announce a fare cut, that means they have some figures regarding how much it normally should cost or normally should be received from riders. And then they decide, okay, everybody can ride free. Great idea, especially in a time of travel with heightened fuel pricing. Fine. I've seen announcements of certain companies selected and certain routes that are going to be used. Great for people traveling along those routes. 2 things. For those of us who live in the riverine area, I have seen absolutely nothing to be done to help people. And when you consider that a lot of Nigeria's revenue come from the riverine area, there is bold-faced neglect. Secondly, the NRC is saying we had operating costs that we, expended to do it the last time. Evidently, no matter how much they've requested for that money to be brought back, it hasn't been brought back. They're not against the cut. They are part of government. They are going to provide the service. But they are saying fairly, I think, that the actual cost for, you see, there's no free lunch. It costs somebody something, somewhere. And NRC is saying, look, we will provide the service as announced. Nobody's against that. But those figures should be provided for. Now, a budget was laid. I don't know whether this populist agenda was part of that budget or not. So if that's not the case, how will the NRC get the money back? But one further note on these rail lines. We have these isolated rail lines here and there around Nigeria. Isn't it way beyond time for the federal capital of Nigeria, Abuja, to be connected to that Itakpe line, and then that Itakpe line logically be extended down to the Port Harcourts and the Akwa Iboms and Cross River states of this world? I don't understand how Nigeria made it a priority to connect from Katsina State to Niger Republic, and which is only 160, which is 200 and something kilometers, and neglect Abuja Itakpe, which is 167 kilometers. The logic, in my view, doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So
the logic is corruption.
Okay, maybe that it's a corruption of good sense right there. So corruption, as I say, is not just being, inoculated with regular Abacha booster shots from foreign countries, but about making sense of what you're prioritizing. So NRC is just saying, and I think it's a fair request, that When we provide this service, the FG should make the money available so that the costs are indeed defrayed. It's going to cost the NRC something. I've ridden on those trains. They are remarkable. They are comfortable. They are quiet. They are awesome. But the routes, just you have to jump on a vehicle, then get from one place to the other, then join the train. Come on, make it a real network, not just isolated pieces and parts.
All right. While you were making the comment of connecting Abuja seamlessly, the rail run from the south to the north and back and forth, I just saw that the fact that last administration talked about the coastal rail line that includes Calabar, Lagos, and all that. Just thought to put that in line because you asked about it.
I didn't ask. I'm aware of it, and you said a keyword. They talked about it. There is a statement we have in Nigeria: talk and do. Do. Then I'll be able to praise you. They shouldn't just talk about it, but they should get it done.
Okay, so Joseph, let's go to the stand of the Daily Post message.
All right.
Dan Okudu has got this message here, and it says, the news we are hearing about the Port Harcourt refinery is quite heartwarming. Kudos to those who have made this thing a reality. That's from Okuda. Next comes Rexy from Surulere. Lots of Nigerian workers have put in their efforts to get the refineries where they are today. We salute the industry and ingenuity. We remain hopeful that all our efforts will yield the Nigeria we all desire. Rexy on a very optimistic note this morning.
All right. Still listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. The conversation continues. More headlines with the analysts and, of course, more of your messages as well. Stay with us. Going back home? We're going back home. So you bring us in, yeah?
Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. Zibby and Amas still here, and AB and Joseph still picking up the papers and helping us make sense. And you sending in all of those interesting comments relating to the headlines and how they resonate with you. But Joseph, help us understand this one from Daily Trust. And it speaks here of certain issues. Nigerian Air reps summon ex-aviation minister Sirika. That's according to the NCAA.
I mean, it's long overdue. I mean, that minister has got a lot of questions to answer. And the point is that it surprises anybody that there hasn't been any serious accountability around the Nigeria Air project, because what show happened just on the eve of the departure of that last administration has left many people wondering the sincerity or purpose of that whole thing. And that the new minister has come in and actually suspended that raises a whole lot of questions around what the probity of that whole thing was. So we expect to have answers, candid answers and questions asked this minister. And he should be able to explain, because billions of naira have been spent. And like the reps said, billions of naira have been spent and we don't see anything. Yeah, people have justified, and he has tried to explain how it is not unusual to have a show, of the plane, get a plane, paint it, and do all this. What was that purpose? What was the purpose of all of that? Was Headline. It to, yeah, to just, okay, we are doing something. What is that thing that was being done? Are planes being bought? Is that an arrangement? Is there an agreement or something? At some point, if the head of the Ethiopian Airlines had to go, and some people believe that it is in relation to how this whole thing was managed. So yeah, okay, countries are known to get airlines to fly their flags for them. But the transparency of that whole arrangement is what is in question here now. Has there been agreement made? What is the effect of that? What are the timelines? When are we seeing the first plane fly? When is it going to fly? And the people in the industry have said that there are so many things about that whole arrangement that is questionable. Now we have seemingly viable airlines in Nigeria that could be the fly Nigeria flags. Why didn't we choose them? Why didn't we put down the money we're putting outside into those ones, get them more fleet, and let them fly the Nigerian flag? So these are some of the questions we expect the reps to ask this man. And then we are all eagerly waiting to hear details of what all this transaction was and where the money that was voted for it has gone. And then if there are issues, there should be consequences. There should be consequences if there are things that cannot be accounted for.
All right, let's go on to Abby. Did you want to add?
Yes, as the last administration was getting ready to leave, I observed a certain velocity when it came to the expenditure of public funds. Two things, all the photo ops in history were arranged. One of such photo ops we talked about earlier, the entire commissioning in quotes of the Dangote refinery, and this lipstick on a pig hot dog and pony show called Nigerian Air. As far as I'm concerned, all the thing talk about how you can get another country, there appears to have just been a decision, let's take pictures. Something that they could have gone to a studio in Abuja to take pictures and Photoshop the plane at the back. They used billions to bring a plane in. It was recorded as Ethiopia Air on every ICAO portal. It came in for 15 minutes. It wasn't opened. It wasn't boarded. They took a picture and went back. That is a profligate and corrupt use of public funds. And I'm sorry, I've already gone in judgment. Yes, want to hear the answers, but I cannot see the justification for that kind of expenditure in that manner at that time, except that some people were looking for how they can make money off it. It was a wrong decision by the wrong people at the wrong time in the wrong way. I hope that there are consequences, but I am not holding my breath.
All right, we're moving on to Daily Post. The Federal Workers Forum has raised an alarm that the 35,000 naira wage award, which was given to workers by the federal government to cushion the effects of the economic crisis, has been stopped. Now, the workers state that the federal government paid only 1 month out of the 6 months that were promised to the workers.
So there's now FWF, Federal Workers Forum, NLC, TUC, all sorts of acronyms. So this is a new set of people, okay, and they are raising an alarm. Raising an alarm to whom? Is it their pockets raising an alarm, or they're just telling the public? What is the public supposed to do? They have maybe a relationship with the FG, perhaps with the NLC. I'm afraid they are saying they were betrayed. Betrayed by who? The government promised them. On a more serious note, to be honest, is this kind of thing that creates a strain and a credibility crisis by government people. If you wanted to give people an award for 1 month, make a promise for 1 month. Don't say 6 months. Give it to them in September and forget about them October, November, and we don't know whether it's going to happen this December. And if now.
Maybe you're muted.
You'd have to unmute.
AB, can you hear us?
Okay, yes, hearing you. Somebody's trying to interrupt. Sorry about that. So there are a lot of problems that arise when you make a promise, you don't carry it out. The next time you are making promises, it's harder to be believed. But I'm hoping that maybe shame will come over government. The people promised it, and they may actually catch up again. Otherwise, I'm afraid there's very little that can be done. Government made a promise. I bet you in those 3 months, nothing has been cut out of the allowances and awards given to all the federal government workers, legislators, National Assembly members, and people in the presidency. So it's just a pity that government sits down, makes a policy, based on that policy, makes a promise, and just neglects to do it. And seemingly, there's no consequence. Seemingly. I do not actually sit here and know what can compel government to do what government itself promised. I mean, I'm at a loss because to my understanding, many times government really doesn't seem to care very much about the ordinary people. But, you know, for the 1,411 that went to COP, I know they got their allowances.
Okay, I drift away now to Joseph this morning, but they say a fish afraid of water would be a strange thing to hear in a tale, but like saying, will Lagos ever be scared of traffic? But let's find out. From the Daily Trust newspaper comes Lagos begins clearance of Apapa Oshodi Expressway. Speak to us about this and how long have we heard about this on the headlines and why is it intractable?
This is about the third or more time we talked about this story. Lagos trying to enforce clearing of the traffic along, Apapa Expressway and all that. It's a good effort, but what's the result? Why is it that no one clear decision can be made to make sure that these things can be dealt with? Because it's more or less like it's an attitudinal thing that Nigerians don't obey rules, don't obey laws, and the government sometimes seems to be helpless. What I expect the Lagos State government to do is go to the House of Assembly, get a law passed, a law that stipulates penalties for people who cause these problems. So when they get you, either you're paying a heavy fine or you're going to jail, or both. So there's a sufficient deterrence for it. Okay, you chase these people one day, the task force is sent out and all that. For how long can you sustain that? How long? The other day I spoke about government also providing alternatives for people, and I was told there was alternative and people don't use them. So you make it such that if you get to be arrested, you will have to have a consequence for your action. So the state is not helpless. They have got the House of Assembly there. They should send the executive bill to the House of Assembly to pass a law. And in that law, you say exactly what you say. You make when the different stages of the hearing of that bill, you get the relevant stakeholders to come and talk about it and how they think they can make the contribution. Make sure it is transparent. There is public hearing for every bill that is presented to the House of Assembly. The stakeholders will be road transport workers or transport owners associations, and so get them to come and participate in the process, but make a law that gives the government the instrument to be able to deal with this matter. And once people get to know that there is a law that takes care of you when you violate, then of course the people will change.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And that's where we go over now to close up with the messages.
Oluwaseyi says, the only news I want to hear about the former aviation minister is that the anti-corruption agencies have built a solid, lid-tight case against him and not the media circus the invitation to the House of Reps will be. Chidi says, as regards the 35,000, we were only paid for September. Until date, we haven't received any. I work with one of the Federal Research Institutes here in Lagos. The government is not being sincere. Jonah says, I'm surprised it's not the EFCC summoning Hadi Sirika. All right.
We see JJ's message. Idima Puza, we also see your message. Thank you all very much.
Yes, indeed. That's it for Freshly Pressed this morning. And special thanks to our analysts for joining us this beautiful day, the last working day before Christmas. So thank you, Joseph. Thank you, AB. And we wish you a beautiful Christmas celebration.
Merry Christmas, Omaz. Merry Christmas, Mrs. President. And everybody who is listening, I wish you all wonderful holidays.
Thank you.
Forget my Grinch-like statement. Merry Christmas to everybody. All the very best.
Maybe you were the Grinch for a few seconds.
Yes, at the beginning.
Talking about the Grinch, I intend to watch that movie for Christmas. How the Grinch stole
Christmas. Oh.
Maybe the Grinch has corruption in his